said that if the Syrian government did not fulfill all of the promises that it made to the Arab League, that more action and more pressure was going to be required. We've talked from this podium about action at the Security Council. We've talked about other things. So we've talked about increasing sanctions, adding to the number of countries participating actively in sanctions. So obviously we have an active policy process to look at all the options as this goes forward.
Two questions on the Arab League mission. According to press reports, there are only 66 Arab militaries today or currently in Syria. Do you think this number is enough to satisfy the expectations?
Well, our understanding is that the Arab League intended over a period of days and weeks to deploy somewhere between 150 and 300 monitors. So they're in the middle of that deployment now. So I think we need to let them continue to try to get their people on the ground and see whether it's sufficient.
Yesterday, Syrian National Council called on head of the Arab mission, Mr. Al-Dabi, to leave the post. Do you think head of the mission is credible enough to continue his work?
I'm not going to comment from this podium. We're not going to comment on the individuals that the Arab League is deploying. As I said, we're going to judge this mission by fulfillment of the mandate that it has promised its own people and that it's promised the Syrian people, that it will deploy fully, that it will have full access, and that it will report honestly and credibly on what it finds.
Are you aware of a civil lawsuit against a Swiss embassy employee who was involved in a fatal car accident a couple months ago?
I am not, Brad.
You're not?
No.
Okay, I will send you the story then.
Excellent.
What? On the Palestinian aid, so $40 million has been released to the Palestinians. How did that come about, and can you give us an update on what's happening with the rest of the $147 million in aid that's been frozen by Congress?
Well, first to say, as you know, we have been working with Congress for some time because we don't think it's in U.S. national interest to keep this money frozen. So from that perspective, we're gratified that $40 million has now been released. We continued that conversation with Congress right up through recent days and weeks, and we're pleased that we've now been able to move about $40 million in economic and humanitarian support to the Palestinian people provided through the Economic Support Fund account. We will continue to work with Congress when they come back in session to secure additional funding for these programs because we think they're important. We think they aid in stability and security and development for the Palestinian people. That's in our interest, it's in their interest, and we believe it's also in Israel's interest. I would also note that separately from that ESF fund, we have continued to provide some $200 million in direct budget support to the Palestinian Authority in 2011.
So, but what concerns were met on the part of Congress to allow them to release this?
I think you're asking me a question that's better addressed to Congress. I would simply say that we had a very active and strong dialogue with members of Congress on this issue.
Mark had told us that U.S. briefing to General Kayani about the 2611 CENTCOM report has been postponed, not rejected. Do you have a new date for that briefing?
I can't speak to that. I'll let you know if we do.
And do you know that if who has delivered? Pentagon today confirmed that the report has been delivered to the Pakistanis. Can you give us any more details about?
I think that's a question for the Pentagon. I think they had the lead on that. Okay, one over here. Yeah.
Do you have a readout of Glenn Davies' meeting yesterday with South Korea's Lim Sung-nam?
I think I have a little bit. Not a lot of it, but a little bit. Okay. Let's see what we got here. Somewhere in my falling apart book. Here it is. Special Representative for North Korea Policy Glenn Davies did meet with Special Representative for Korean Peninsula Peace and Security Issues Lim Sung-nam yesterday. They discussed a wide variety of issues, including next steps in the Korean Peninsula, constructive, substantive, reflecting the close cooperation between our two countries and the personal bond that they are beginning to form.
Mark Turner yesterday, it seemed like he was suggesting that Robert King was also in this meeting. Is that correct? Or did Lim meet separately with King, or were all three of them? Were Davies, King, and Lim all in the same meeting?
Looks like King was in the meeting as well, yeah.
Okay. Why was King in this meeting?
Well, obviously, we are continuing to talk about the humanitarian situation in the DPRK and what we've said to the North Koreans and what the South Koreans have also said to the North Koreans regarding whether or not we would go forward with nutritional assistance.
So I think that Lim Sam Nam is in charge of, I think he's the representative for South Korea to the six-party talks. So why was King talking about humanitarian aid issues to South Korea's representative on six-party talks?
Well, I can't speak to the Korean side's choice of interlocutor, but as you know, we do coordinate closely in how we evaluate the situation in the DPRK, not only with regard to the nuclear dossier and the six-party talks, but also with regard to the humanitarian situation. So I assume that we were coordinating on both issues.
Okay. Is the U.S.'s ultimate decision on nutritional assistance to North Korea, is that something that the U.S. discusses with South Korea first? Like, does South Korea play a role in this decision?
I think I just finished saying that we coordinate how we see the situation. Mm-hmm. We've always said that our decision on nutritional assistance would be based on our evaluation of need and would be based on whether we thought we could monitor what we would send so that it would get to the right people. Mm-hmm. So on both the need front and appropriate monitoring procedures, we talk about these issues with South Korea all the time, so that we can, compare notes and evaluate what will be most effective and when.
With today being the last day of Kim Jong-il's funeral, do you have anything on the timing of when, these talks on nutritional assistance, or talks about having that next set of bilateral talks will happen?
I think we said before the Christmas holiday that we had made clear to the DPRK what our remaining questions were and that the ball is in their court.
So the U.S. is not going to make the next contact with North Korea?
Again, I think we said that the ball is in the DPRK's court.
I have two quick questions related to Turkey.
I can't imagine. They're really related to Turkey?
Yes.
I'm so surprised.
Turkish government today acknowledged that mistake was made and over 30 civilians were killed in the southeastern city of Şırnak in Turkey. Given the extensive cooperation between the U.S. and Turkey, especially on intelligence matters, first of all, have you been able to get in touch with the Turkish counterparts how this happened? Because the General Staff today also stated that there's an investigation underway. Are you taking any role? And some blame, of course, that since the U.S. giving the intelligence, you might have a role within this accident.
This is an incident that has just happened in terms of the government's reaction. I think probably it's more appropriate to ask the Turkish side what they are doing with regard to the investigation. But clearly they said that they will investigate.
So you have not been contacted by Turkish government asking any kind of...
Not to my knowledge. Not to my knowledge.
Last week I asked about the arrested journalists. I was told that Mark was going to get me back. Do you have any update? Have you been able to talk to Turkish government on these trials that have been going on and added new ones now?
Let me apologize if we didn't get back to you. I'll take it again and we'll endeavor to get back to you before the end of the day.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Happy New Year, yeah.